In her last life, my best friend started having sex with her husband to prepare for a second child when she was in confinement. As an obstetrician-gynecologist, I analyzed the importance of confinement to her in detail, and advised her that it would be easier to get pregnant after a proper confinement. She took my advice and kept her husband at a distance. Unexpectedly, her husband couldn't resist and found a mistress. And the mistress soon became pregnant. Her husband's family, who favored sons over daughters, drove her and her daughter out. I kindly took them in. But my best friend blamed me for everything, resenting me for meddling in her affairs and ruining her wonderful marriage. She pushed me from the 23rd floor when I wasn't paying attention, and I was smashed into a pulp. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the 7th day after my best friend had given birth. As soon as I entered the ward, I saw my best friend's husband, Jack, hugging her and whispering something in her ear. And his hand was reaching under the hem of her hospital gown. The interns behind me blushed and couldn't help coughing, which alarmed the two of them. Mia was a little embarrassed when she saw us, and gently pushed Jack playfully. Jack glared at us angrily, muttered, "What a bad time to come," but rubbed his hand vigorously twice before casually withdrawing it from under the hem and walking aside. Everyone was stunned by this scene. Before I could speak, Mia blamed me. "Ava, why did you bring so many irrelevant people here today?" Looking at her expression, memories of this ward round in my last life flooded my mind. At that time, I came alone. Mia was my junior high school classmate. When I first transferred to the school, I couldn't integrate into the new environment. And it was Mia who took the initiative to be my friend. This friendship lasted for 12 years. And I regarded her as my best friend. She said she was a light sleeper and couldn't rest well in a multi-bed ward. So I used a lot of connections to get her a very sought-after single room. And I also delivered her baby personally and took care of her postpartum recovery. She said she was shy and didn't like a lot of people seeing her privacy. So I often violated the hospital regulations, made excuses not to bring others, and came alone to check her wound. But unexpectedly, all of this was just an excuse for her to be affectionate with her husband. I caught her and Jack being intimate in the ward more than once. Because I was the only acquaintance, the two of them didn't feel embarrassed at all, and were all lovey-dovey in front of me. On the 7th day after Mia gave birth, I found ambiguous red spots on her body that couldn't be covered by the hospital gown at all. When checking the wound, I also found that the wound had split open and was bleeding again. I knew that the two of them must have done something they couldn't resist. So, for Mia's health, I made an excuse to send Jack away and, blushing, warned her not to be too indulgent with Jack. But she refused and defended Jack everywhere, saying that he did this because he loved her. Mia told me proudly, "Do you know that physical attraction is more important than psychological attraction?" She also said that Jack was also thinking of her, hoping that she could get pregnant and give birth to a second son as soon as possible. Her mother-in-law had been sarcastic several times because she gave birth to a daughter this time. I could only, as an obstetrician-gynecologist, seriously tell her the importance of confinement. Besides, you had a cesarean section, and there is still a wound on your uterus. If the incision has not healed, it cannot withstand the tension of the uterus expanding again, and there is a high possibility of uterine rupture. Finally, she was frightened by me and began to resist Jack's touch. But unexpectedly, Jack went outside to find a mistress, and the mistress soon became pregnant. Mia's mother-in-law was convinced that the mistress must be pregnant with a boy, and firmly demanded that Jack divorce Mia and drive Mia and her daughter out. Mia's parents had died in a car accident long ago, so I quickly took her and her child back to my home. I didn't expect that she would blame me for everything and push me out of the window when I wasn't paying attention, thinking of the pool of bright red pulp I saw when my soul floated in mid-air at that time. I couldn't help closing my eyes. To Mia, "It hasn't been long since you gave birth. Your wound hasn't healed yet, and you can't have sex yet. If your husband can't resist, don't you know to take care of your own body? What if you get pregnant? A reproach brought me back to reality from my memories. I looked back and saw that it was Ryan among the interns. This child has always been upright, although he was a little shy at this time. For the sake of the Parturian's body, he immediately spoke righteously. These interns also noticed the red spots on Mia at this time, and all of them showed disdain on their faces. Xiao Li also echoed, "You are too inattentive. Although this is a ward, it is still a hospital." Mia's face immediately turned red from their scolding, and she looked at me with a look of about to cry, and questioned, "Your teacher hasn't said anything yet. What does this have to do with you? Ava, tell them off quickly. I don't want so many people to come for the examination together." "Why did you bring them here?" Ryan said righteously. "Bringing us here is the hospital's regulation. If you don't want us to come, you can transfer to another hospital." Jack got angry at this time and rushed forward to push Ryan. But I raised my hand to block him. I frowned and said, "What are you doing?" But he was louder than me. "What are you doing? Aren't you Mia's best friend? Is this how you act as a good friend? Bringing others to see her anecdote?" Staring at his somewhat fierce face, I suddenly smiled. "You also know this is a joke?" I looked at Mia, who was staring at me in disbelief, and told her, "Previously, I came to check your wound privately, which violated the hospital's regulations. I am now going to accept the hospital's punishment and have to suspend my practice for 6 months. I came this time to inform you that there should be other obstetrician gynecologists to take over later. And these interns will also follow." She opened her mouth wide, and the blaming words finally swallowed back into her mouth, and she became embarrassed instead. "Ava, I didn't mean it. I didn't think it was that serious." I shook my head. "It's okay. I agreed to it before myself. It was my fault. Yes. I was wrong. In my previous life, I was completely wrong. This time, I will stay away from this crazy couple as far as possible. Don't worry. As long as you have a good rest, the wound will heal soon. It doesn't matter which doctor it is." After that, I took the interns out of the ward. I was even too lazy to check Mia's wound. When I stepped out of the ward door, I looked back. Mia snuggled into Jack's arms again. Jack kissed her and his hands started to become unruly again. "Don't take it to heart. It has nothing to do with you at all. You don't know the hospital regulations." She knew what she was doing was wrong, but still did it. After the door closed, some indescribable sounds faintly came from inside. The interns were all extremely angry. Ryan accused, "How shameless." I advised her, "As doctors, we have already given the medical advice. As for whether the patients take care of their own bodies and follow the medical advice or not, it's none of our business." I asked her to record carefully the medical advice that we told Mia and Jack today, that they should not have sexual intercourse during the confinement period because it would be very dangerous if she got pregnant, in case they came to make trouble later. After that, I packed my things and went home to start my 6-month vacation. 3 In fact, I was the one who went to admit my mistake to the leaders this time. Just after being reborn, I immediately decided to stay as far away from Mia and Jack as possible and respect their fate. I insisted on a 6-month suspension. The leaders thought it was not a big problem and didn't originally plan to give me such a severe punishment. But I myself, since I was admitted to the medical school, I have been constantly on the go like a spinning top. It's just right to take this opportunity to have a good rest. I booked a 1-month tour group to Europe and would leave 3 days later. Unexpectedly, in just these 3 days, the hospital had been in an uproar, because without me going to Mia's ward from time to deliberately interrupt her and Jack, these two people became more and more unscrupulous. Yesterday, their voices were so loud that they were heard by the family members of the Parturian woman in the next ward, and they were clearly seen by a group of people through the glass on the ward door. Someone even took out their mobile phones to take a video and post it on the internet, although the video was quickly taken down because of its imperpetrines. But this incident caused a great stir. Netizens first began to attack the hospital, saying that the hospital was inactive and actually allowed the pregnant woman to have sexual intercourse during the confinement period regardless of her safety. Fortunately, at that time, I asked Ryan to record the medical advice carefully. The hospital quickly put the relevant records on the internet to prove that the hospital had already given relevant medical advice and it was the pregnant woman herself who didn't follow it. Now the netizens became even more excited and began to search for the identities of the two people in the video. Countless netizens scolded them for being shameless and doing such things in public. Just when I was reading the hot comments of netizens with great interest, the doorbell suddenly rang. I looked out through the peephole and happened to meet Mia's face that was leaning over. Without thinking too much, I reflexively muted my mobile phone. Fortunately, I don't like light. The curtains at home are the thickest ones, and no light will leak out at all. Mia and Jack should not be able to find out that I'm at home. Sure enough, there were knocking sounds outside and Jack's angry curses. "Are you dead? Why is there no response?" Mia whispered. "Don't be like this. What if she gets angry and doesn't let us stay? What are you afraid of? Didn't you say she would do whatever you said? If it weren't for you being friends with her back then, she might even have got depression. How could she be admitted to the university and become a doctor?" Jack hugged Mia. "It's all because of our baby. How dare she?" Mia handed the baby to Jack and giggled. "Forget it. She should be not at home. Let me call her and ask." As soon as she finished speaking, my mobile phone vibrated. I sneered and hung up without hesitation. Soon, it vibrated again, and I hung up again. I sent her a WeChat message. "I'm not convenient to talk right now." "What's the matter?" She told me, "Ava, have you seen the video on the internet slandering me? I'm so unlucky. Now the hospital doesn't let me stay either. Netizens have also searched for my and Jack's identities. We can't even go home. I really have nowhere to go. Can we come and stay at your place?" Before I could reply, she pitifully said again, "My wound hurts so much. And there is no doctor to see me now. If we come to your place, you can also help me check it. And little Bao is so pitiful. She is so young. I don't know if she will get any diseases. Don't you like her the most? You shouldn't just watch her be homeless." In her previous life, when she was driven out of Jack's family, she also used little Bao as an excuse to let me take them in. But what did I get in the end? I pressed the keyboard hard and replied to her, "I'm sorry. I'm traveling abroad." For she has gone abroad. Immediately, Mia's scream came from outside the door. "What? Why did she go abroad now? Is she doing it on purpose?" Jack kicked the door angrily again. Suddenly, he looked at the direction of the door lock, and then pressed a few times on the digital lock. There were beep 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 error sounds from outside the door. But Jack laughed. "She is not at home. Which is just convenient for us. Hurry up and ask her for the password." He rubbed his hands together, looking lewd. "I've never lived in such a nice house before. Didn't you say last time that her house was installed with floor-to-ceiling windows? Then we'll..." Just thinking about it is exciting. Mia's face instantly turned red, and she gently punched Jack. "Oh. What if someone sees us? What are you afraid of? It's so high up. Who could see?" He whispered in Mia's ear. "Besides, wouldn't it be better if someone saw?" Listening to their filthy words, I was completely speechless. What strange people. Is there nothing but porn in their heads? I quickly took the initiative and sent a message. "I'm on the plane now. It's a flight of more than 10 hours. I'm turning off my phone. Let's talk when I land." The two people outside the door finally gave up when they saw my message and left, cursing. 5 after that. Until I actually went abroad. Mia kept sending me messages asking for the password to my house. But I didn't reply to any of them. I had made up my mind. At worst, I would say that my phone was stolen as soon as I went abroad. Gradually, seeing that I didn't respond, Mia stopped sending messages. And next time I heard news about her was when I was about to visit the British Museum. Ryan, an intern doctor, called me. Teacher Ava. When your friend came to the hospital for a follow-up examination, it was found that she was pregnant again. I wasn't shocked at all. Given their frequency, it would be strange if she wasn't pregnant. Ryan continued to complain to me. She hasn't even had her lot I completely cleared yet. I don't know how they could be so impatient. Just thinking about it makes me feel sick. She had a cesarean section before, and her body hasn't recovered well. I'm afraid that her uterus will rupture when her belly gets bigger. Teacher Ava. Do you think I should persuade her again? After thinking for a while, I still told Ryan, tell them clearly about all the risks. Then make relevant records. Finally, it's their own choice. You mustn't interfere. Based on my understanding of Jack's family, they would definitely not give up this child. After all, they were crazy about having a son. If Ryan was soft-hearted for a while, he would follow in my footsteps in my previous life, and then be blamed and resented by them. In this life, I stay far away from them, but I also don't want anyone to harm themselves because of kindness. Same month later, I returned to China in a good mood. Every day at home, apart from researching papers, I cooked delicious food to treat myself. One day when I went to the supermarket, I unexpectedly ran into Jack, and there was a young woman beside him holding his arm. The two were intimately close together, picking things out, just like a couple. It seemed that this was Jack's mistress. Even though some things had been changed in this life, some things still inevitably happen because of some people's natures. Jack didn't know what he whispered in the woman's ear, which made the woman pout and complain while hitting him. The next second, Jack suddenly raised his voice. What are you afraid of? She is like a princess in my house now. My mother takes good care of her. What else could she be dissatisfied with? He kissed the woman on the face. She's pregnant and can't serve me. Of course I have to find another woman. Do I still have to stay faithful? How can a man endure this kind of thing? No, and doesn't cheat. A woman should be sensible. In ancient times, when a woman was pregnant, she would even take the initiative to find a concubine for her husband. How dare she make a fuss? The woman giggled copiously again and said, "Honey, you're so amazing." And then the two left hand in hand. Don't worry, baby. I really didn't know whether to call Jack an idiot or this mistress an idiot. However, since there was one Mia in the world, there would naturally be a second one. They all think they're the heroines in doting wife novels. Another 2 months later, there was suddenly an obstructive dystocia surgery in the hospital. The department leader called me several times, urging me to go to the hospital immediately for surgical discussions. When I finally got off the operating table, I unexpectedly ran into Mia, who was coming for a prenatal checkup. She and Jack's mother were blocking another obstetrician in our department, David, and Ryan was also standing aside holding some materials. Doctor, what do you mean? Why must this fetus be aborted? These are twins, the precious grandsons of the Jack family. Jack's mother stamped her foot and shouted loudly, attracting the attention of many people around. David helplessly whispered to persuade, precisely because they are twins. The fetus must be aborted. The mother was pregnant again before her postpartum confinement was over. At that time, her uterus hadn't recovered well. You know, she could barely continue the pregnancy and come to the hospital for more prenatal checkups to constantly observe the condition of her uterus. Besides, she had a cesarean section before and already has a scarred uterus. Originally, if there was only one fetus, but now she's pregnant with twins. It's only been for months, and you can see how big her belly already is. One can imagine how big her uterus will be when it's time to give birth. At that time, her uterus may not be able to bear it and will rupture. That won't do either, Jack's mother said very firmly. She's already pregnant. How can she abort it? Those are 2 living lives. You're committing a sin. And you also said it was possible. Not absolute. Just as you said. We'll come to the hospital for more prenatal checkups. If it really doesn't work at that time, we'll abort it then. Then, she went to persuade Mia, who had been lowering her head and seemed to be scared silly. Don't worry. It's not that serious. There are 2 babies. There must be at least 1 boy. Then you'll be a great contributor to the Jack family. She gave Mia a thumbs up and said, Jack will be devoted to you all his life. Won't he? Don't worry. If he dares to bully you at that time, your mother and father will stand up for you. Just wait for a happy life. Mia looked up at her, gritted her teeth and was about to say something when she was interrupted by David. Madam, you have to think it over. Having an abortion at this time will have less impact on your body when you are 7 or 8 months pregnant. Not to mention how great the risk of abortion is. At least if your uterus really ruptures. You may be lucky enough not to die on the operating table. But don't even think about having children in the future. Bryant tugged at David's sleeve. David seemed to remember something and finally shut up, only sighing deeply. I know that most doctors are benevolent and always want the best for their patients. But not all patients can appreciate your kindness. The story of the farmer and the snake is constantly being reenacted, which also makes the doctor-patient relationship today more and more tense. When Jack's mother saw that Mia was a little shaken, she quickly continued to persuade her. What else do you need to give birth to after this time? There's no need to give birth again. So there will be no impact at all. Right? I'm telling you. Just listen to me. Would I harm you? Mia hesitantly looked up. I know she must be shaken in her heart. No one is not afraid of death. Even if one loves one's child very much, one still hopes to be alive. Not to mention that all the doctors have repeatedly reminded her that this is very risky. Even if she is a pampered wife, she is not a complete fool. At this time, she just needs someone to stand firmly beside her and support her decision to have an abortion. In this way, if she is blamed by Jack's family in the future, there will be someone who can help her and someone who can be blamed. It's all your fault for persuading me like this at that time. I trust you. How could I believe what others say? If it weren't for you, how could I end up in such a situation? I remembered the words she roared at me before pushing me downstairs in my previous life. I also gradually realized that, in fact, I was deceived by her in my previous life in this way. Even if Jack is not careful. If a couple doesn't want others to know their private affairs, they can always keep it a secret. Mia herself knew that this was a little inappropriate. But she didn't want to anger Jack because of this. So from time to time she deliberately let me see in front of me, or quietly complained to me about where she was in pain. So I, who really cared about her, couldn't help but patiently persuade her, and would replace her as the sinner in the Jack family's mouth. She was very clever. But she misjudged Jack's feelings for her and the Jack family's patriarchal ideology and finally failed completely. However, she still had one last outlet for her anger, which was still me. Thinking of this, I stopped watching the fun, shrank back around the corner and left without looking back. Before long, I received a message from Ryan. Teacher Ava. Mia has been inquiring about you all the time and wants to hear your opinion. I have already told her that none of us can get in touch with you. Thank you. In this life, I must be a cold-eyed onlooker to the end. I really want to see what kind of end they will come to in the end. 9 Since I want to stay away from Mia and them, I plan to sell my house. Not only do I want to make it impossible for them to find me, but also because of the shadow of my previous life. It was in this house that I was forced to the window by Mia with a knife and then pushed down hard. During the time I lived here, I would have nightmares of being pushed downstairs from time to time. Changing the environment means that everything can start anew for me. Coincidentally, during this time, the well-known school near the community has been built and started enrolling students. So the housing prices in the community have soared and there are also many demanders. As soon as I put it up for sale, many people contacted me. It was sold within 2 days. I took the money from the house sale and bought a second-hand house in a more upscale and safer community. It was bought by the parents for their son as a wedding house. But after their son became an adult, He went abroad and has not lived in it yet. The decoration of the house also suits my taste very much. I can move in with just my bags. It only took less than a week to sell the house. Buy a house and move. On this day, I just made a cup of coffee in my new home and sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window looking at the sunset outside. Mia, Jack and all the things in my previous life seemed to be far away from me all of a sudden, although it was a sunset. In my eyes it was like a rising sun. I was completely reborn. 10 when in a good mood. Time seems to pass very quickly. Another 2 months passed. And the elderly pregnant woman who had an obstructive dystocia operation last time finally fully recovered and was about to be discharged from the hospital. Her family made a silk banner and insisted on giving it to me. I couldn't decline. So I had to go to the hospital again. Just as I was receiving praise from the leader and compliments from those around me, suddenly someone grabbed my arm forcefully. The hand that grabbed me was so strong that the fingernails were deeply embedded in my flesh. I let out a low cry of pain and looked sideways, only to see Mia glaring at me fixedly. When I saw her appearance, my eyes wide and uncontrollably. I didn't expect that she had become like this. She was extremely thin, with only a thin layer of skin covering her bones, really like a skeleton. But her belly was very big, making her arms and legs look even thinner. Just standing there like this, she makes people feel terrified. One always has the feeling that she will collapse to the ground the next second. Ava, where have you been? I've finally found you. Seeing me staring at her, her tears streamed down like beads. Because there was an interview by the city TV station today. There were a lot of onlookers. So I didn't immediately shake off Mia's hand. She looked like a weak person at the moment. And people instinctively sympathize with the weak. I helped her to a chair on one side, looking solicitous and attentive. But as soon as she sat down, I immediately straightened up and took 2 steps back, keeping a safe distance from her. Mia, what do you want from me? She stared at me in astonishment, seemingly surprised at my aloofness. And yet as if it was expected. Ava, what's wrong with you? Why have you been avoiding me these days? Do you know how hard it has been for me these days? You are my best friend. Why are you doing this? Have I done something wrong to you? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'll kneel down and apologize to you. Okay? With that, she really held her stomach and was about to kneel down shakily. Seeing her like this, the onlookers began to whisper and point. I quickly reached out to support her and firmly pressed her onto the seat, deliberately raising my voice and saying, "What are you doing? I've already said that my suspension is due to my own reasons. I violated the hospital's rules and regulations. I was soft-hearted and wanted to help you. It has nothing to do with you." But I interrupted her. "I haven't seen you these days because I'm really busy. Didn't I tell you before that I went abroad? But you moved. You don't come to the hospital. And you don't answer my phone calls. With that, she suddenly burst into tears. "Do you know how hard it has been for me these days? The doctor forced me to have an abortion. But this is my baby. How could I bear to do that?" As soon as this statement came out, the surrounding crowd was in an uproar. The city TV station also pointed their cameras at us. I immediately explained, "How can you say such things about your attending doctor? It makes others feel so chilled to hear this. He just suggested that your body is not suitable for pregnancy. This is a diagnosis made according to your physical condition. How can you say that he forced you?" Mia glanced at David, who was glaring at her angrily, and the suddenly enlightened expressions of the people around her, and quickly explained, "No. I know the doctor's diagnosis is normal. I mean, my family, Jack's mother, must let me have the baby. But the doctor said it was very dangerous." She grasped my hands tightly and looked at me pitifully. "Ava, I don't know what to do. You are a professional and also my friend. Tell me what I should do. Okay? As long as you say it, I will definitely listen to you. I'm begging you." Someone began to stir things up. "Dr. Ava, You were just commended, and you must be an authority in gynecology. Just tell your friend so that she can feel at ease. Yes. I think she looks so pitifully thin. Sometimes patients just hope to get a definite answer to feel at ease. You doctors are always afraid of taking responsibility, and always speak ambiguously. Ryan was a little worried, and was just about to come forward to speak for me. I waved my hand at her. Mia, it's not that I can't tell you what to do. But that's my choice. Not yours. The doctor can only inform you of the specific situation and prescribe medical orders for you as professionally as possible. But this is your body, your baby, and your life. So, what to do can only be clearly thought out by yourself and can only be chosen by yourself. You should be responsible for your own life. No one should or is supposed to take the responsibility for you. Ryan immediately supported me and said, if everything is what the doctor says, is there any guarantee for your life? Other doctors also echoed, you are all grown-ups. Don't you know how to distinguish right from wrong and can't be responsible for your own decisions? We looked at those people who were stirring things up, and they were embarrassed and didn't dare to say another word. Mia was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted, wiped her tears and said, but you are my friend. She pouted wrongfully. Can't I even seek some advice from my friend? Yes. You can. I nodded. But your friend can also refuse. Now I'm telling you that I refuse. And I don't think I want to be your friend anymore. The scene was silent. Mia stared at me in astonishment, as if she couldn't believe that I dared say such a thing in public. I smiled infuriately. Since you want to kidnap me with the identity of a friend, then I'll directly tell you that we are not friends anymore. This is more tolerable than the doctor-patient relationship. After all, this can completely be a personal choice. No one can force me to be friends with Mia. Sure enough. Soon everyone reacted, but didn't say anything. Not a single word of reproach. Mia quickly realized that she had just made a wrong move. She should have always emphasized my identity as a doctor to arouse the resonance of those keyboard warriors in society so as to kidnap me. But now, others will only gossip about why I don't want to be her friend. And I said it so directly in front of so many people. Is there really something wrong with her? Or has she done something wrong to me? Just then, Mia suddenly stood up abruptly and pushed me hard when I was unprepared. I didn't expect that she, being so thin, could be so strong. When I fell to the ground, there was a sharp pain in my coccyx. Ryan rushed over hurriedly to support me. Teacher Ava, are you all right? I tried to move with her help, but couldn't. My coccyx should be fractured. But Mia didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. She was pointing at my nose and scolding me loudly. You don't want to be friends with me? Well, I don't want to be friends with you either. If it hadn't been for me back then, you would have been isolated and bullied long ago. Could you still be a great doctor like you are now? Looking so high and mighty? So ungrateful. You heartless wretch. I tell you. Actually, I only made friends with you back then to keep obedient dog. Sure enough. You are just as I thought. You've been so obedient over the years. As she spoke, she burst into laughter, completely ignoring the people around. I stared at her expressionlessly, without a ripple in my heart. Since she pushed me off the building, and I became a puddle of flesh in my previous life. I've long realized that the reason Mia made friends with me was just to get what she wanted from me. When we were young, she wanted an unconditional playmate who would accompany and recognize her. When we grew up, she wanted all kinds of conveniences and financial help. And now, because of the hormonal chaos during her pregnancy, and the inner struggle she had endured for a long time, she finally broke down. I told her in a very calm voice, I'm glad we've reached an agreement that we are not friends. After that, I didn't bother to look at her again and told Ryan about my situation. She immediately arranged for a stretcher to carry me away for an X-ray. Mia was still making harsh remarks behind me. Over the years, apart from me, who else would bother with you? Don't regret it. Ryan actually took the time to reply to her. Why not? I'm eager for Teacher Reva to pay more attention to me. At this time, all the doctors stood by my side. I also like going shopping, having dinner and researching topics with Ava the most. Alas, how could you do things secretly without taking me? Me too. Me too. Teachers, can you take us interns with you in the future? I looked at these kind-hearted gazes around me, and listened to their laughter. My heart was like being soaked in the hot spring water, bubbling with warmth. When you give, more people will give you the same kindness. 12 Sure enough, my coccyx was fractured. I had to lie in bed for at least 3 months. I hired a caregiver to take care of me. Every day, I ate and slept, enjoying a rare leisure. I gained 10 pounds in just 1 month, which scared me so much that I almost bounced out of bed to go to the gym for aerobic exercise. In this way, another month passed uneventfully. Time came to June, and the weather began to get hotter. My bone had healed a great deal. I could gradually move around with the support of something, but I still couldn't stand for a long time. On a stormy night, an emergency call popped up on my mobile phone. I answered the call, and David's rapid breathing came from the other end. Ava, Mia had a fall. Her uterus ruptured, and she had massive bleeding. It has some similarities with the previous case of obstructive dystocia. The third hospital can't perform this kind of surgery, and wants to transfer her to our hospital. What do you think? After Mia made a scene last time, perhaps she also felt ashamed herself. So she transferred to the third hospital for prenatal checkups. Before David could finish his words, I interrupted him directly. David, you've forgotten. My coccyx was broken. She pushed me with her own hands. A slapping on the thigh sound came from the other end of the phone. Ah, right. I actually forgot. Then I'll go and reject them. Without you, the survival probability of this uterine suture surgery is too low. We don't dare to boast and take over. After hanging up the phone, I looked at the storm outside, but my heart was calm. I stood up from the wheelchair and poured myself a glass of milk to help me sleep. The hospital has support braces. Maybe I could force myself to complete this operation with the support. But why should I force myself? To damage my own health to save her life? I'm not a saint. I won't do such a stupid thing. I recognize that human life is above all and respect life. But it doesn't mean that I've forgiven her for murdering me in my previous life. Yes, it was murder. She killed me once. It's already my kindness that I haven't fought violence with violence. 13 I slept soundly that night. I didn't wake up slowly until the caregiver came to open the bedroom curtain and the sunlight shone on my face. When I opened my mobile phone, the first news push was about a doctor-patient dispute in the third hospital. In the video, Jack was grabbing the doctor by the collar and shouting loudly at the camera. Quack doctors killed my wife. Quack doctors killed my wife. Jack's mother was also wailing beside him. My poor win grandchildren. Might win grandchildren. The doctor was struggling hard. The survival rate of the symptom of uterine rupture and massive bleeding is originally very low. I've already said that our hospital can't perform this kind of surgery. The maternity hospital didn't want to receive her either, saying that the only doctor there who could perform this operation had a fractured coccyx and couldn't even stand up. We've already tried our best to rescue and by time to transfer the patient to a higher level hospital. Unfortunately, the patient's condition deteriorated rapidly. Nonsense. It was your inaction that killed my wife and my son. Jack suddenly punched the doctor in the face. Why didn't you perform the operation? Why didn't you perform the operation? Pay compensation. Pay me compensation. Seeing this, everything was as expected. Jack didn't want to seek justice for Mia at all. He just wanted to blackmail the hospital for some money. Not far from Jack and them, in a corner of the video, there was a blood-red bed sheet, on which lay an emaciated patient. Her hand hung motionless beside the hospital bed. This was Mia's original fate. 14 less than half a day after the news of the doctor-patient dispute was released, things took a turn. The third hospital retrieved a series of Mia's prenatal checkup reports from our hospital. as well as all kinds of doctor's orders they gave to Mia later. All of which showed that it was the patient's family's own fault. Having sex during the confinement period, getting pregnant during the confinement period, and so on. These hashtags scrambled to be on the hot search list. And all the comments below were scolding Mia. Although the dead should be respected, she was seeking death on her own. Can you be a little more responsible for yourself? You don't cherish your own body. Is your husband brainless? Are you also brainless? Can giving birth to a child make you stupid? Have you lost your mind? How horny are you? But there were also some people who refuted. So soon after giving birth, generally speaking, the mother is forced to have sex, right? During the confinement period. You have to take care of the baby and breastfeed. Who has the leisure? So the target of attack then became Jack. After they XCD him, they found out that these two are actually the couple who made a big scene in the hospital some time ago by having a huge fight. At that time, Jack brazenly said in the video, "I can sleep with my wife whenever I want." Mia also shyly said, "My husband just loves me too much." At this, netizens were completely outraged. They all said that these two were like a perfect match. Like the turtle and the mung bean. At the same time, a new video was released on the internet. It was secretly recorded by onlookers when David was persuading Mia and Jack's mother that day in the hospital. The battlefield of netizens began to shift to Jack's mother again, saying that she was so futile and still preferring sons over daughters in this day and age. Until the upload of the last video, this matter finally reached its climax. It turned out that Mia fell last night because she accidentally bumped into Jack and his mistress together. More importantly, the mistress's belly was also big. In the video, Mia questioned Jack how he could do this to her. But Jack casually told her, "If you can't sleep with me, I can't find someone else? I tell you, whoever gives birth to a son will be my Jack's rightful wife in the future." After saying that, he forcefully shook off Mia's hand holding him, and Mia lost her balance and fell heavily to the ground. Netizens began to condemn them offline. Many people took videos outside Jack's house. Some scribbled randomly with red paint. And some threw eggs. Just when netizens regretted that there was no substantial punishment for Jack's family, an anonymous person suddenly broke the news on the internet that the mistress in the video was an AIDS carrier. Now the scumbag and the slut have got their just desserts. I turned off my mobile phone and threw myself back into the research of my thesis topic. In my life, I finally got rid of this family completely. The dark clouds will disperse and the light will come eventually.